Oh, hello. Hey. We're 1 week away. I'm Nomiki Konst. We have 1 week away until actual election day. Let's take a breath. And I'm stressed, as I know you guys are. But let's look at where things stand right now, 1 week from the election. First, this is actually very clearly not 2016. I know folks want to say that. I know they keep comparing 2016, and some of that is because we're afraid it will happen again. We're overcorrecting a little bit, but let's just pay attention. Banish 2016 from your mind. It is different in so many ways this time around. And that's actually a really interesting point because Democrats tend to do this. They look back rather than plan forward. And this is a very different election. First off, Biden is leading Donald J. Trump by 9 points in national polling. That's 52% to 43%. On this day, 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton was less than 6 points ahead. She was at 45.7% to 40. She never broke 50% ever. In the final days, Trump closed within 3 points. That was within the final days of the election, which brings us to a second big difference from 2016. Even if Trump does mount some sort of comeback in the next 7 days, which I don't see much of a sign, 67 million people have already voted. Should I say that again? 67 million Americans have already cast their ballot in the 2020 election. To say this another way, nearly half of the electorate, based on the 2016 vote, has already turned out. For those who wondered what democracy would look like in a pandemic, this is a democracy at its finest. We vote because we can. Yes, we can. Which brings us to one of my one last fear in the final 7 days. And there are a lot of fears, okay? Trump and the Republicans have tried everything, even ramming through the nomination of Amy Coney Barret to the Supreme Court last night. Strangely enough, did not get headline news today. But nothing has cut into Biden's support or boosted Trump's in any significant way. None of these actions has boosted his polls, which leaves the Republicans with their very last card. And it is a very big card, and one they are very, very, very good at. Of course, that's voter suppression. Their last remaining hope of hanging on to the White House, and probably the Senate too, is to deter people from voting and to keep some of the ballots already cast from being counted. Democrats are dramatically outvoting Republicans in the mail-in voting, from what we know in the states that track party registration. That's why Trump keeps raising phony warnings about mail ballot fraud. Republicans will do all that they can to knock out those ballots. Does the signature match? Was the witness real in states that require a witness? And there is a direct link here to Amy Coney Barret. In several states, the Republicans are trying to cut off the mail ballots on Election Day. So, for example, if you live in Pennsylvania or North Carolina, the state says your mail ballot will be counted if it is postmarked by Election Day, even if it arrives after. Republicans are asking the Supreme Court to block that and set a hard deadline that all mail ballots must arrive before the polls close. In other words, if the Republicans win this argument at the Supreme Court, the United States Postal Service, battered, bruised, and underfunded, could determine whether the deciding votes in 2 battleground states get counted. Deliver them before the polls close, and they count. Deliver them after, and they don't. You think that should be up to the post office? I don't think so. But guess who will get to vote on that question? Amy Coney Barret. It could be the first case she sits on next week. Trump did tell us he wanted her on the court to rule this election, right? Even before Election Day. So we have an historic wave of democracy about to crash against the Republican breakwater of voter suppression. Which brings me to one other difference from 2016. Voter suppression is really only effective in the election if it's otherwise pretty close. But the Republicans have another problem: their candidate. In 2016, a lot of angry working people saw Donald Trump as their vehicle to send a message to the elites. He wasn't a person, he was an avatar. Trump worked to build a coalition bigger than that anger, He brought in evangelicals, business people. But there's none of that this time. All he has is his angry base. And they have him, the real Donald Trump, as his Twitter handle says. In 2016, they could at least act like they didn't really know who he was. Well, after 4 years of his madness, that is not an option, which is why the people who decided at the last minute to vote for him in 2016 are now defecting. The more you know him, the more disgusted you are. There will be some purple in this blue wave, and I'm actually okay with that if we win, especially if they fight the Republican institutions causing this. All right, these are the stories that are at the top of my newsfeed. Which side are you on? Yesterday, with the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, some Senate Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, expressed anger and frustration at the illegitimacy of this process. Schumer stated the following, quote, "You may win this vote, but you will never, never get your credibility back. And the next time the American people give Democrats a majority in this chamber, you will have forfeited the right to tell us how to run the majority," end quote. First of all, what credibility did the Senate GOP have before with its background talks to kill the stimulus and its outright opposition to basic social programs? But moreover, why are the Senate Democrats always waiting for a reason to stand up for their so-called principles? Who remembers Nancy Pelosi saying that Democrats would use every arrow in their quiver to stop the confirmation? One thing is clear. The shared credibility between the Democrats and Republicans comes from belonging to the same crooked political establishment. The Department of Homeland Security is ramping up its intimidation methods against immigrants as Election Day draws nearer and as voters of color historically stand to vote against Trump's bigoted administration. For example, on October 21st, DHS revealed a new expedited removal policy to deport those who cannot prove that they have lived in the country for 2 years and bypass a court hearing process. With billboards in Pennsylvania threatening, quote, criminal aliens and an increase in raids, it is very clear that the DHS is using voter suppression as a tool to continue their reign of terror for Donald Trump. And last, a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris reminds us that the power and profit motive comes before principles in the Democratic Party. When asked by the interviewer, Norah O'Donnell, if she would advocate for Medicare for All in her vice presidential role, Harris said no. Quote, "I would not have joined this ticket if I didn't support what Joe is proposing," she claimed. Despite the fact that she originally co-sponsored the Medicare for All bill in the Senate, before she was running for president and needed progressives, but with a new demand for support among the establishment as the Biden-Harris ticket seeks the nomination, Harris is upholding the status quo, and it's the American people, alongside Medicare for All, that are being abandoned. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.